Dear friends, today is considered as World Brotherhood Day. Beautiful day, the 11th of September, when Swami Vivekananda delivered his historic speech in the World Conference at World Parliament of Religion at Chicago. This is also the day when sadly two more incidents happened in the world. One is the attack on Twin Towers in USA, and what today we are seeing in Afghanistan. Okay, we should not say that. Hopefully, the they're filled with a radical mindset. Um, also, uh, radical mindset may also change. That's the hope India has. So we always pray for the best. प्रियंका वो उसमें हूँ मैं एक प्रोग्राम So this was the day when Swami Vivekananda shared this historic speech, a resounding speech, a reminder that the strength, a lion called India exists. So this is correctly celebrated as World Brotherhood Day, and in this is the day when the world needs to remind itself, when the world needs to play back this speech and live this speech in letter and spirit. So whatever is happening in the world today, or whatever happened on 11th September in America was sad. The bombing of the Twin Tower, I am saying, and today the formation of a Taliban government driving the Afghan people out of its own territory. Okay, out of its own territory. So this was a little sad. So this could have been avoided, and the world should take responsibility. So anyway, this is not the day we'll talk about it, but we'll talk about the beautiful things that Swamiji gave us. Okay, so he is saying that sisters and brothers of America, you can see, it fills my heart with joy unspeakable to rise in response to the warm and cordial welcome which you have given us. I thank you in the name of the most ancient order of monks in the world. So he's thanking the people over there, and he is also um, thanking on behalf of the most ancient order of monks in the world, because Hinduism was one of the most ancient religion. Vedic culture is one of the most ancient culture. After that came Buddhism, after that came Jainism, after that came Christianity. So it's one of the most the most ancient religion in the world, and that's why it's called Sanatan Sanskriti. Sanatan means that which doesn't have an end, that which doesn't have a beginning. So that was Swami Vivekananda's way to thank the people of the world. Okay, I thank you in the name of the mother of religion, and I thank you in the name of millions and millions of Hindu people of all classes and sects. My thanks also to some of the speakers on this platform who, referring to the delegates from the Orient, have told you that this man from far off nations may well claim the honor of bearing to different lands the ideas of toleration. I am proud to belong to a religion which has taught the world both tolerance and universal acceptance. You see, Swami Vivekananda is clearly telling the rich cultural heritage of this Vedic tradition, wherein he says, I am proud to belong to a religion which has taught the world both the idea of tolerance and universal acceptance. We believe not only in universal tolerance, but we accept all religion as true. Okay, we accept all religion as true. We are not saying that Hinduism will rule the world. We are not saying we are the only religion, we are the best. We are not saying that. So that is all religion is true. I am proud to belong to a nation which has sheltered the persecuted and the refugees of all religions and all nations of the world. I am proud to tell you that we have gathered in our bosom the purest remnant of the Israelis who came to South India and took refuge with us in the very in the very with us in the very year in which their holy temple was shattered to pieces by Roman tyranny. I am proud to belong to the religion which has sheltered and is still. Okay, just a minute. Will it not go to the next page? Let us try. let me share from the. I am proud to belong to the religion which has still fostering remnant Zoroastrian nation. I will quote you a few lines from the hymn which I remember to have repeated from my earliest boyhood, which is every day repeated by millions of human beings. As the different streams having their sources in different places all mingle their water in the sea, so Lord, the different paths which man take through different tendencies, various though they appear crooked or straight, all lead to spring. So this is the paths may be different, but the destination is same. So that is the beautiful thing that Swami Vivekananda is talking. Okay. The present convention, which is one of the most august, this is the most august and one of the most historic, especially as far as India is concerned, especially America is concerned. And in fact, this is a very, very important day. On one side is tolerance, and on one side, the horrors of terrorism, the horrors of, what should I say, um, dogmatism, the horrors of tyranny are well represented. Okay, so this is the best day to talk about universal brotherhood, the need of universal brotherhood, if I can correctly say, is needed most today. We need to respect human life. We need to respect the life of children. We need to respect the life of women. We need to respect basic human rights. These are important. And no nation can be driven by its selfishness. Okay. And India and America and two such countries which represents the highest values, highest spiritual values, highest national values, and both are democratic countries. The highest values which democracy represents. So today the speech of Swami Vivekananda has become even more relevant than before, any time before in the history of the world. And the present convention, which is one of the most august assemblies ever held, is in itself a vindication, a declaration to the world of the wonderful decree preached in the Gita. Whoever comes to me through whatsoever form I reach him, all men are struggling through paths which in the end lead to me. So there is no discrimination. Their paths may be different, but the destination is same. You may call it by different names, Allah, God, Ram, Jesus, or anything. Okay. Sectarism, bigotry, and its horrible descendant fanatism have long possessed this beautiful earth. Swami Vivekananda is clearly talking about fanatism. Okay. They have filled the earth with violence, drenched it often with human blood, destroyed civilization, and sent whole nations to despair. Had it not been for these horrible demons, human society would be far more advanced than it is now. Okay, he's clearly talking that had fanaticism not existed, then human society would be far more advanced than it is now. But their time is has come, and I fervently hope that the bell that tolled this morning in honor of the convention may be the death knell of all fanaticism, of all persecution with the sword or with the pen, and of all uncharitable feelings between persons wending their way to the same goal. Okay, so he's telling, "Okay, let us think that this 11th September, that world conference date, sounds the death knell for all fanaticism. But we are seeing that fanaticism is back, and this is the 11th September, the same day Swami Vivekananda delivered his speech, that it comes back, it raises his hood. Yes, we need to fight it again. We need to destroy it from the world forever and ever, because it is dangerous. It is dangerous for the world. It is dangerous for humanity. It is dangerous for human dignity. And why we disagree, Swami Vivekananda is telling. Why we disagree? I will tell you a little story. You have heard the eloquent speaker who has just finished say, let us cease from abusing each other, and he was very sorry that there should be always so much variance. But I think I should tell you a story which would illustrate the cause of this variance. A frog lived in a well. It had lived there for a long time. It was born there and brought up there, and yet was a little small frog. Of course, the evolutionaries were not there then to tell us whether the frog lost its eye or not. But for our story's sake, we must take it for granted that it had its eyes, and that in every day cleans the water of all the worms and bacilli that lived in it with an energy that would do credit to our modern bacteriologists. In this way, it went on and become a little sleek and fat. Well, one day another frog that lived in the sea came and fell into the well. Where are you? I am from the sea. The sea. How big is that? It is as big as my well. And he took a leap from one side of the well to the other. My friend say the frog of the sea. How do you compare the sea with your little well? Then the frog took another leap and asked, is your sea so big? Okay. What nonsense you speak to compare the sea with your well. Well, then said the frog of the well, nothing can be bigger than my well, there can be nothing bigger than this. This fellow is a liar, so turn him out. That has been the difficulty all the while. We consider our own religion, our own self, bigger than anybody else. That's the problem with religion, that we can't respect and tolerate. That's what the Swami Ji is trying to tell the world, that universal tolerance and brotherhood, these are two important things that are important. We need to understand the values of teamwork. We need to understand that we can stay together, we can respect our own religion as well as we can respect the religions of others. Our mother is good, but that doesn't mean uh, that someone else's mother is bad. Okay, so that tolerance is key to preservation. That tolerance, that universal acceptance, that mutual respect is the key to sustaining a um, better world order, a tolerant world order, respect for human values, respect for human rights, a peaceful society, a non-violent society, a society where we can live in harmony, peace, and love. So that's the important message Swamiji is giving through this word. That has been the difficulty all the while. I am a Hindu. I am sitting in my own little well and thinking that the whole world is mine. Little well. The Christian sits in his little well and thinks that the whole world is his well. The same thing that just now I explained. Now I'm taking out the 19th September 1893 speech. Three religions now stand in the world which have come down to us from time prehistoric: Hinduism, Zoroastrianism, and Judaism. They have all received tremendous shocks, and all of them prove by their survival that their internal strength. But while Judaism failed to absorb Christianity and was driven out of its place of birth by its all conquering daughter and a handful of Parsis, is all that remains to tell the tale of their grained religion. Sect after sect arose in India and seemed to shake the religion of the Vedas to its very foundation, but like the waters of the seashore in a tremendous earthquake, it reached it reached only for a while, only to return in an all-absorbing flood, a thousand times more vigorous, and when the tumult of the rush was over, these sects were all sucked in, absorbed, and assimilated into the immense body of the mother faith. So Swami Vivekananda is again telling a lot of um, efforts are were done to shake the Hindu sect, the Vedic culture, but in the end, all turned futile. The Hindu sect, which was brought, which was enshrined in righteousness, which was enshrined in a righteous world order, only grew stronger and stronger. So, because it didn't have fanaticism, it didn't have fundamentalism as its uh, core principle. It didn't have any trace of all these things. Okay, it was far, far away from all these things, and that's why it has survived all attacks. And even today, its values are cherished. They also form part of the United Nations. They form part of the Panchashil Agreement as signed with China, and so many other things. They are the core values. Okay, so Mother faith, Swami Vivekananda is again saying ki the Vedic religion is the mother faith because it's the mother of all religion, from which all religions sprang, came up, and uh, all religions came subsequent to it, and all religious principles are enshrined in the mother faith. If you study the Vedic philosophy, you'll find everything. There is the concept of Dvaita, there is the concept of Advaita, there is the concept of Vishishta Advaita, there is the concept of formless God, there is the concept of God with a form. So, all these are there in the Vedic tradition. From the high spiritual flights of the Vedanta philosophy, of which the latest discoveries of science seem like echoes to the low ideas of idolatry with its multifarious mythology, the agnotism of the Buddhism, and the atheism of the Jains, each and all have a place in the Hindu religion, where when then the question arises, where is the common center to which all this widely diverging ready converge? Where is the common basis upon which all this seemingly hopeless contradiction rest? And this is the question I shall attempt to answer. So very clearly, Swamiji is telling the Vedic religion has conglomerates everything, all the tradition of the world religion, and that's why he is telling it rightly to be the mother of all religion. The Hindus have received their religion through revelation, the Vedas. They hold that the Vedas are without beginning and without end. It may sound ludicrous to this audience how a book can be without beginning or end. but by the Vedas, no books are meant. No books are meant. They mean the accumulate treasury of spiritual laws discovered by different persons in different times, just as the law of gravitation existed before its discovery and would exist if all humanity forget it. So it is with the laws that govern the spiritual world, the moral, ethical, and spiritual relations between soul and between the individuals spirits and the father of all spirits were there before their discovery and would remain even if we forget them. So Swami Vivekananda is saying just like the laws of gravitation, the spiritual laws also exist, and they are timeless, they are ageless, they do not change. Okay, the world may have changed, but the essential values do not change, essential spiritual laws do not change. They remain same from time immemorial and will remain so in ages to come because the fundamental principles are same. Okay. The discoverers of these laws are called rishis, and we honor them as perfected beings. I am glad to tell this audience that some of the very greatest of them were women. You see, Swami Vivekananda clearly had during that time he said that some of the discoverers of this spiritual concepts were women themselves. So it may be said that these laws, as law, may be without end, but they must have a beginning. The Vedas teach us that creation is without beginning or end. Science is said to have proved that the sum total of cosmic energy is always the same. Then, if there was a time when nothing existed, where was where was all this manifested energy? Some say it was a potential form in God. In that case, God is sometimes potential and sometimes kinetic, which would make him mutable. Everything mutable is a compound, and everything compound must undergo that change, which is called destruction. So, God would die, which is absurd. Therefore, there never was a time when there was no creation. Swamiji is saying. So, this is the Indian philosophy doesn't say that God is born or God is dead. He just takes avatar, but the he always exists. Okay, he always exists in the form of a universal soul, and he always exists inside our hearts, inside every being, inside any living being, it always exists in this universe. If it may be allowed to use a simile, creation and creator are two lines without beginning and without end, running parallel to each other. God is the ever active providence by whose power systems after systems are being evolved out of chaos, make to run for a time and again destroys. This is what the Brahmin by boy repeats every day. The sun and the moon, the Lord created like the suns and the moons of previous cycle, and this agrees with modern science. So spirituality and science are not different. In a way, Swami Vivekananda is telling they converge at certain point. Okay, so the spiritual laws he has already said are not different from scientific laws. The spiritual values are not different from scientific values, and the spiritual truth is also not different from scientific truth. Okay, here I stand, and if I shut my eyes and try to conceive my existence, I, What is the idea before me? The idea of a body. I represents the body. And I then nothing but a combination of material substances. The Vedas declare no, I am a spirit living in a body. Very beautiful. Now the crux of the Vedic culture comes. I am a spirit living in a body. I am not the body. Okay. The body will die, but I shall not die. Hence, here I am in this body, it will fail, but I shall be living. I had also a past. The soul was not created for creation, means a combination, which means a certain future dissolution. Okay, so it is said in the Vedic culture the soul existed before, it exists now, and it will continue to exist forever. So it is eternal. It is Sanatana, it is Sachidananda. So these are the values ascribed to a soul. So it is not subjected to death and dissolution. The body dies, but the soul is immortal. Okay. If then was the soul was created, it must die. Some are born, others are some are born miserable, others are born miserable. Some are without hands or feet, others again are idiots and only drag on a wretched existence. Why, if they are all created, why does a just and merciful God create one happy and another happy? Why he is so partial? Nor would it mend matters in the least to hold that those who are miserable in this life will be happy in a future one. Why should a man be miserable even here in the reign of a just and merciful God? In the second place, the idea of a creator, the God does not explain the anomaly, but simply expresses the cruel fate of an all powerful being. There must have been causes then before his birth to make a man miserable or happy, and those were his past actions. Okay. Are not all tendencies of the mind and the body accounted for by inherited aptitude? Here are two parallel lines of existence, one of the mind, the other of matter. If matter and its transformations answers for all that we have, there is no necessity for supposing the existence of a soul, but it cannot be proved that thought has been evolved out of matter, and if a philosophical monism is inevitable, spiritual monism is certainly logical and no less desirable than a materialistic monism, but neither of this is necessary here. We cannot desire that bodies acquire certain tendencies from hereditary, but those tendencies only mean the physical configuration through which a peculiar mind alone can act in a peculiar way. There are other tendencies peculiar to a soul caused by its past actions, and a soul with a certain tendency would, by the laws of affinity, take birth in a body which is the fittest instrument for the display of that tendency. This is in accord with the science wants to explain everything by habit, and habit is got through repetition. So repetitions are necessary to explain the natural habits of a newborn soul, and since they were not obtained in this present life, they have come down from past life. So here Swami Vivekananda is talking about the mind, its tendencies, and accordingly, as the mind, so is the creation. Okay, so as say we have lived with a spiritual mindset, so that soul, due to its mindset, is again born in a spiritual environment. We have lived in a wrong environment, a evil mindset, a criminal mindset, so we are born in that kind of atmosphere. So it is also the karma which Swami Vivekananda is talking about. So this is a very important message we need to leave today. There is a direct and demonstrative evidence. Verification is the perfect proof of a theory, and here is the challenge thrown to the world by the rishis. We have discovered the secret by which the very depth of the ocean of memory can be stirred up. Try it, and you would get a complete reminiscence of your past life. So then the Hindus believe that he is a spirit, him the sword cannot pierce, him the fire cannot burn, him the water cannot melt, him the air cannot dry. This is a very important sloka in the Bhagavad Gita which says, Nainam chindanti sastrani, the soul cannot be cut by weapons. Nainam dahati pavaka, it cannot be burnt by fire. Nainam kledyanti yatyapo, it cannot be moistened by the water. Nainam shashyati marutaha, it cannot be dried by the wind. The soul is immortal, indestructible, sanatana, endless. It is timeless, birthless. It has no end, no beginning. So this is the concept of the soul the Vedic philosophy gives us. The Hindus believe that every soul is a circle whose circumference is nowhere but whose center is located in the body, and that death means the change of this center from the body to body, which has no circumference but its center is located inside the body. So it has no width or depth or height, but its circumference is located in our body. Okay. Nor is the soul bound by the conditions of matter. In its very essence, it is free, unbounded, holy, pure, and perfect. Again, Swami uses the word perfect, pure, but some of other it finds itself tying down to other matter and thinks of itself as matter. So the essential thing is that the soul is pure, the soul is independent, the soul is ageless, timeless. But since our mind gets attached, so we do not feel the freedom of the soul. Okay, so that was the Vedic philosophy um, believes in the power of the soul, in the infiniteness of the soul, and it has always given importance to soul rather than the matter, which is destructible. And Swami Vivekananda is talking about this. Why should the free, perfect, and pure being be thus under the thraldom of matter? Is the next question. How can the perfect soul be deluded into the belief that it is imperfect? We have been told that the Hindus seek the question and say that no such question can be there. Some thinkers want to answer it by posting one or more quasi-perfect beings and use big scientific names to fill up the gap. But nothing is naming is not explaining. The question remains the same. How can the perfect become the quasi-perfect? How can the pure, the absolute change even a microscopic particle of its nature? But the Hindu is sincere. He doesn't want to take shelter under sophistry. He is brave enough to face the question in a manly fashion on the and the question and say that no such question and positing one or more quasi-perfect beings and use big scientific names to fill up the gap, but naming is not explaining. The question remains the same. How can the perfect become the quasi-perfect? How can the pure, the absolute change, even a microscopic particle of its nature, but brave enough to face the means only a change of center from one body to another. The present is determined by our past action and the future by the present. Okay, so the seed of the present is in the past, in our past karmas, and the seed of the future is shown in our present karmas. The present is determined by our past actions and the future by the present. The soul will go on evolving up or reverting back from birth to birth and death to death. But here is another question: is man a tiny boat in a tempest, raised one moment on the foamy crest of a billow and dashed down into a yawning chasm the next, rolling to and fro at the mercy of good and bad actions? A powerless, helpless wreck in an ever-raging, ever-rushing, uncompromising current of cause and effect, a little moth placed under the wheel of causation, which rolls on, crushing everything in its way, and waits not for the widow's tears or the orphan's cry. The heart sinks at the idea, yet this is the law of nature. Is there no hope? Is there no escape? Was the cry that went up from the bottom of the heart of despair. It reached the throne of mercy, and words of hope and consolation came down and inspired a Vedic sage and stood up before the world and in a trumpet voice proclaimed the glad tidings. Hear, ye children of immortal bliss. It is calling us not a children of suffering, children of grief, calling us children of immortality, immortal bliss. Okay. Even ye that reside in higher spheres, I have found the ancient one who is beyond all darkness, all delusion. Knowing him alone, you shall be saved from death over and over again. Children of immortal bliss, what a sweet, what a hopeful name. Allow me to call you, returned by that sweet name. Allow me to call you by that sweet name. Um, Heirs of immortal bliss, ye the Hindu refuses to call you sinners. It refuses to call you sinners. It is calling you as children of immortal bliss. That was the science we discovered. That was the reality the the Vedic culture is talking about. Okay. Ye are the children of God, the sharers of immortal bliss, holy and perfect beings. We are not imperfect beings. We are perfect beings. Okay. Imperfect beings. Ye divinities on earth. It is a sin to call a man so. It is standing level on human nature. Come up, O lions, and shake off this delusion that your ship. You are souls, immortal spirits free, blessed and eternal. Ye are not matter, ye are not bodies. Matter is your servant, not you, the servant of the matter. That does it is that the Vedas proclaim not a dreadful combination of unforgiving laws, not an endless presence of cause and effect, but that at the head of these laws, in and through every particle of matter and force stands one by whose command the wind blows, the fire burns, the clouds rain, and that stalks upon the earth. So Swami Vivekananda is clearly answering this uh, question that life was not meant for grief or suffering. It is meant for discovery of the immortal bliss, the Lord itself, the consciousness itself. To understand our own reality, we were given this life, okay? Not to, not for suffering, not for struggling, not for earning money, not for filling up our belly, not for uh, पेट के लिए, but to realize the highest truth, the truth that this immortal bliss represents our Sachidanand Swarupa, our Ananda Swarupa, our connection with the Lord. So this was the tradition that India represents. And as a subsequence, so many things came up in India, like yoga, like spirituality, like so many religion, Jainism, Buddhism, and all were mm, linked to this concept of the soul, this whole discovery of the soul, this whole discovery of the knowledge of the self. There were different traditions, dualism, um, and there was the tradition of Advaita, Vishishta Advaita. So all this tradition centered around this concept of the soul. So, and what is his nature? He is everywhere, the pure and formless, one, the Almighty and the All Merciful. Thou art our Father, thou art our Mother, thou art our beloved friend. Thou art the source of all strength. Give us strength. Thou art He that beareth the burdens of the universe. Help me bear the little burden of this life. Thus sang the rishis of the Vedas. And how to worship Him? Through love. He is to be worshipped as the one beloved, dearer than everything in this and the next life. So, love is the centrifugal force to achieve that infinite God. He can be conquered with love. And there are various traditions in the Bhagavad, Srimad Bhagavad, where Krishna um, uh, allows the mother to tie him with a rope, and yet the ropes fall short. Why? Because he has to be tied with love. The Lord can be tied with love. The Lord washes the feet of Sudama. Okay, he accepts the grains that one small bag of grains from Sudama, the Lord. He washes his feet. Okay, so the Lord becomes a servant of his devotee. The this is the this is the 360-degree um, concept. In today's day, we can say a camera which captures the 360-degree view of a particular thing. So the Indian spirituality has a has multi-dimensional aspect. It conquers the same thing from a multi-dimensional aspect. The approach is also multi-dimensional, and you can take it upon what suits you. Okay, it's not a somebody may like South Indian food, somebody may like North Indian food, somebody may you can choose as per. So everything is there in the Vedic philosophy. You can choose according to your taste. Okay, but yet the goal is same. Okay, this is the doctrine of love declared in the Vedas, and let us see how it is beautifully developed and taught by Krishna, as I was telling Srimad Bhagavatam, whom the Hindus believe to have been God incarnate on earth. He taught that a man ought to live in this world like a lotus leaf which grows in water, but is never moistened by water. So a man ought to live in this world, his heart to God and his um, hands to work. It is good to love God, but for hope of reward in this or the next world, but it is better to love God for love's sake. And the prayer goes, Lord, I do not want wealth, nor children, nor learning. If it be thy will, I shall go from birth to birth, but grant me this, that I may love thee without the hope of reward. Love unselfishly for love's sake. One of the disciples of uh, Krishna, the then emperor of India, was driven from his kingdom by his enemies and had to take shelter with his queen in a forest in the Himalayas. And there one day the queen asked him how it was that he, the most virtuous of man, should suffer so much misery. Yudhishthira answered, Behold, my queen, the Himalayas, how grand and beautiful they are. I love them. They do not give me anything, but my nature is to love the grand, the beautiful. Therefore, I love them. Similarly, I love the Lord. He is the source of all beauty, of all sublimity. He is the only object to be loved. My nature to love him, and therefore I love. I do not pray for anything. I do not ask for anything. Let him place me wherever he likes. I must love him for love's sake. I cannot trade love. What beautiful love. Uh, Explaining the whole concept of love. A love cannot be conditional, it has to be unconditional. Love in any circumstances. Love not only when you are going through good times, but also when you are going through bad times. That also is God's kindness to lift you up, to improve your life, to uh, even that period of struggle brings about a transformation, brings about a change in our life. So that also has to be respected, that also has to be cared for, because difficult times do not last. Okay. Dif- uh, but people who are strong get over these difficulties. So this is the essence we need to understand, but we never need to give love for our heart. We may not believe in philosophies, we may not believe in the soul, but loving God is the ultimate thing that anybody can do, that any learned or even illiterate people can love God better than learned ones. That doesn't requires any scriptures, wisdom of the scriptures also. Okay, because the gopis, they love Krishna like none. Their love is unparalleled, and Krishna was dearest to them. So the gopikas represents love of God. So many things are in this tradition. Okay, as I said, that Swami Vivekananda says this is a complete 360-degree philosophy, and you can find it like a garden uh, where different flowers are there. Okay, different colors of flowers are there, and you can enjoy according to your taste, whichever flower you like, whichever color you like. The Vedas teach that the soul is divine, only held in the bondage of matter. Perfection will be reached when this bondage will be burst, and the word they use for it is therefore mukti, freedom, freedom from the bonds of imperfection, freedom from uh, death and misery, and this bondage can only fall off through the mercy of God, and this mercy comes on the pure. So, purity is the condition of His mercy. How does that mercy act? He reveals Himself to the pure heart, the pure and the stainless see God. Yet, even in this life, then and then only all the crookedness of the heart is made straight, then all doubt ceases. He is no more the freak of a terrible law of causation. This is the very center, the very vital conception of Hinduism. The Hindu does not want to live upon words and theories. If there are existences beyond the ordinary sensuous existence, he wants to come face to face with them. If there is a soul in him which is not matter, if there is an all merciful universal soul, he will go to him direct. He must see him, and that alone can destroy all doubts. So, the best proof of a Hindu sage gives about the soul, about God, is I have seen the soul, I have seen God, and this is the only condition of perfection. The Hindu religion does not consist in struggles and attempts to believe a certain doctrine or dogma, but in realizing, not in believing, but in being and becoming. It believes in a practical concept in being and believing, not just in words. Okay, it lives that. perfection. It leaves that purity that the Vedic civilization teaches us. So that's the beauty of Hinduism. So these are the beautiful, see, Swami Vivekananda, what he is doing through this essential lecture is summing up the entire thing that the Vedic culture is not a limited culture. It's a it has 360-degree mm, uh, dimensions. It is the mother of all religion. That's what he wants to say. It is the religion which contains the essence of all religion. You can find it everything here. Okay, and yet the same time there is universal brotherhood. There is tolerance. We do not disrespect any other religion because we consider that also as our own. Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. So that is the essential unity that Swami Vivekananda is talking. We do not hate any religion. And this is the essential message he wants to give to the world. The message of peace, love, and brotherhood. And anybody can catch it. This message can go to people of any religion because the Hindu as such doesn't hate anybody. Okay. And religions or things which are based on matter will are not sustainable. As he said, there were many attempts to break the Hindu, the Vedic culture, but nobody could do it because it was not enshrined in matter. It's enshrined in the indestructible principle. So it cannot be destroyed so easily. It cannot be destroyed, in fact. Stop it easily or with difficulty. It cannot be destroyed because it's enshrined in the principle of the soul, the eternity, the perfection, the purity. So these are the things which it is based on. Let me Thus, the object of their system is by constant struggle to become perfect, to become divine, to reach God and see God, and this reaching God, seeing God, becoming perfect, even as the Father in heaven is perfect, constitute the religion of the Hindus. Okay, it is not a imperfect thing that we are not fragments of God, we are God itself. We are divinity itself. We are not the matter that clearly the Vedas are giving that message. We are that indestructible principle. So far, all the Hindus are agreed that this is the common religion of all the sects of India. But then perfection is absolute, and the absolute cannot be two or three. It cannot have any qualities. It cannot be an individual. And so, what is soul becomes perfect and absolute, it must become one with Brahman. Okay, and it would only realize the Lord as the perfection, the reality of its own nature and existence, the existence absolute, knowledge absolute, and bliss absolute. We have often and often read this called the losing of the individuality and becoming stone or a stone. He jets at scars that never felt own. I tell you, yet it is nothing of this kind. It is happiness to enjoy the consciousness of the small body. It must be greater happiness to enjoy the consciousness of two bodies. The measure of happiness increasing with the consciousness of an increasing number of bodies. the aim, the ultimate of happiness being reached when it would become a universal consciousness. So, uh, the Upanishads gives a very good example of the Ghatakas and the Patakas. So, Ghata, in an empty pot, earthen pot, what it contains is air. Okay, what it contains essentially is air, and um, what is outside the Ghata is called Patakas. That is the universal air. So, the Ghatakas may feel that this air is mine. He may have the ego. We all may have the ego as individuals, like Ghata. We are also like Ghata. So we may also feel that I am Nagendra Jain, I am breathing, I am Swami Vivekananda, this, that. Okay. So that ego might exist. This I am breathing, I am so powerful, so I am so learned. This kind of things may exist. But the moment the ghata is broken, the air inside merges with the air around, the patakash. Same is about us. When the when the matter breaks, the human matter breaks, the human body breaks, death comes, the spirit inside merges with the spirit outside. So this is the concept, okay, of the universality. Therefore, to gain this infinite universal individuality, this miserable little prison individuality must go. Okay. Then alone can death cease when I am one with life. Then alone can misery cease when I am one with happiness itself. Then alone can all error cease when I am one with knowledge itself. And this is the necessary scientific conclusion. Science has proved to me that physical individuality is a delusion, that really my body is one little continuously changing body uh, in an unbroken ocean of matter, and is uh, Advaita is the necessary conclusion with my other counterpart soul. Okay, so this again, the same thing has been highlighted that the spirit is important. Science is nothing but the finding of unity. As soon as science would reach perfect unity, it would stop from being further. But the finding of unity, as soon as science would reach, just a minute. As soon as science would reach perfect unity, it would stop from further progress because it would reach the goal. Thus, chemistry could not progress further when it would discover one element out of which all others could be made. Physics would stop when it would be able to fulfill its services in discovering one energy of which all others are but manifestation, and the science of religion becomes perfect when it would discover him who is the one life in a universe of death, him who is the constant basis of an ever changing world, one who is the only soul of which all souls are but uh, um, all souls are delusive manifestations. So this is what Swami Vivekananda is uh, talking about. Mm, manifestation which would become who is the only constant basis of an ever changing world, one who is the unity soul of which souls of which are souls but delusive manifestation. Thus is it through multiplicity and duality that the ultimate unity is reached. Religion can go no further. This is the goal of all science. So is telling that at a particular point all con- conglomerate, like if one element is discovered out of which all elements are coming, then chemistry has achieved its goal. One energy out of which all energy have emerged, then physics has achieved its goal. One consciousness out of which all consciousness have come, then spirituality has achieved its goal. So this is the essential message of Swami Vivekananda. All science is bound to come to this conclusion in the long run. Manifestation and not creation is the word of science today, and the Hindus is only glad that what he has been cherishing in his bosom for ages is going to be taught in more forcible language and with further light from the latest conclusion of science. Okay. Descent we now, from the aspirations of philosophy to the religions of the ignorant, at the very outset, I may tell you that there is no polytheism in India. In every triumph, if one stands by and listens, one will find the worshippers applying all the attributes of God, including omnipresence, to the images. It is not polytheism, nor would name henotheism explain the situation. The rose called by any other name would smell as sweet. Names are not explanations. Names are not explanation. I remember as a holy boy hearing a Christian missionary preach to a crowd in India. Among other sweet things, he was telling them was that if he gave a blow to their idol with the stick, what would it do? One of the hearers simply answered, "If I abuse your God, what can he do? You would be punished," said the preacher, "when you die. So my idol will punish you when you die," retorted the Hindu. "The tree is known by its fruits. When I have seen amongst them that are called idolaters, men the like of whom in morality and have spirituality and love I have never seen anywhere, I stop and ask myself, can and beget holiness? Can sin beget holiness? So superstition is a great enemy of man, but bigotry is worse. Why does a Christian go to church? Why he is the cross holy? So he is also worshipping the idolatry. Okay. Why is his face turned towards the sky in prayer? Why are there are so many images? Why are there so many images in the minds of the Protestants where when they pray, my brethren, why are there so many images in the minds of Protestants when they pray, my brethren, we can no more think about anything without a mental image than we can live without breathing. By the law of association, the material image calls up the mental idea and vice versa. This is why the Hindu uses an external symbol. When he worships, he will tell you it helps to keep his mind fixed on the being to whom he uh, prays. He knows as well as you do that the image is not God, is not omnipresent. After all, word a symbol, his God's superficial area. If not, when we repeat that word omnipresent, we think of the extended sky or of space, that is all. As we find that somehow or other, by the laws of our mental constitution, we have to associate our ideas of infinity with the image of the blue sky or of the sea. So we naturally connect our idea of holiness with the image of the blue sky, with the image of a church, a mosque, or a cross. The Hindus have associated the idea of holiness, purity, truth, omnipresence, and such other ideas with different images and forms. but with the difference that while some people devote their whole lives to their idol of a church and never rise higher because with them religion means an intellectual assent to certain doctrine and doing good to their fellows, the whole religion of the Hindus is centered in realization. That is the important thing. Not to achieve certain idea, not to achieve certain concept, but in realization of the infinite, in merging that being and becoming that Swami Vivekananda is telling. Man is to become divine by realizing the divine idols or temples or churches or books. Man is to be, are only the supports, the help of his spiritual childhood, but on he must progress. Swami Vivekananda is saying the idol worship is only the means. It is not the end in itself, it is the beginning. It helps us in realizing the divine. It's the conception. Like uh, when we go to the temple, the priest gives us some sweets, and then the child comes to the temple. Uh, uh, from that period, he learns praying to God, and as he prays to God, first he is praying the physical image, but then he realized God is not this physical image, is not limited to this, he is the unlimited thing. When he reads the scriptures, he is the infinite soul. So now, as the baby evolves, as he grows in spiritual realization, so the higher concepts come. But he is not rooted in that image of God, in that finiteness. Okay, so that's how you grow. But to blame Hinduism about idolatry is absolutely wrong because that is a means, not the end. Okay, that's what Swami Vivekananda is trying through this. Abhi khol do. That's what Swami Vivekananda is trying to tell through these beautiful lines of his. So this was a beautiful speech which enshrines everywhere the whole concept, the whole idea of Hinduism. Very beautifully portrayed in beautiful words, and this is the day to cherish this beautiful idea, this beautiful concept for Hinduism, and this is a message for the whole universe. If we can rightly take it up, we can understand. He must not stop anywhere. External worship, material worship, say the scripture, is the lowest stage. Struggling to rise high, mental prayer is the next stage, but the highest is when the Lord has been realized. Okay. Uh, uh, mark the same earnest man who is kneeling before the idol tells to you him the sun cannot express, nor the moon, nor the stars, the lighting cannot express him, nor what he speak of as fire. Through him they shine, but he does not abuse anyone's idols or call its worship sheen. He recognizes it in its necessary stage of life. The child is father of the man. Would it be right for an old man to say that childhood is a sin or youth a sin? So very beautifully captured that we cannot blame other religion. We should not blame other religion. We should, if possible, see the mistake in ourselves. We should learn from the greatness of all religion. That's what very nicely conveyed. We should go to the crux of a religion if we are to criticize it. And if we understand its crux, and we have every right to criticize that religion. Okay, not before that. Okay, so this is the very beautifully, very grand way Swami Vivekananda is discussing the whole crux of the Hindu philosophy, the Vedic philosophy. It's very essentials from idolatry to brotherhood to the concept of the soul, to concept of the infiniteness, to its being the mother of all religion. The Swami Vivekananda is very beautifully discussing to the concept of love also, which is also there in the Vedic culture. If a man can realize his divine nature with the help of an image, would it be right to call that a sin? Nor even when he has passed that stage should he be called an error. To the Hindu, man is not traveling from error to truth, but from truth to truth, from lower to higher truth. Okay, from lower to higher truth. Okay, to him all the to him all the religions from the lowest fetishism to the highest absolutism mean the same. Just moving, just a minute. To the highest absolutism means so many. To him, all the religions from the lowest fetishism to the highest absolutism means so many attempts of the human soul to grasp and realize the infinite, each determined by the condition of its birth and association, and each of these marks a stage of progress, and every soul is a young eagle soaring higher and higher, gathering more and more strength till it reaches the glorious sun. So, Swami Vivekananda here is talking about the evolution of the soul, the maturity of the soul, that it grows with experience, it grows with time, it grows with birth. So, this is the essential. Um, it's a long speech, so we'll not take it up in its entirety. So, this is where we should end, I think. So this is a beautiful speech given by Swami Vivekananda, and it was important to discuss it today. This is a wonderful day to discuss this speech. And yes, I am not, I'm not actually eligible to discuss this because it's a very important landmark speech. But just to remind myself, to remind all of us, I took upon it, even though I'm not perfect, but I hope the very essence of universal brotherhood, the very essence of universal love, the very essence of respecting all religions in the world, the very essence of understanding that there is a certain depth to certain religion, all religion. We must understand its in its depth, in its crux, in its spirit. Every religion is good. We should not hate any religion. Okay. The practitioners may be good or bad, but religion as such is not bad. So we must um, practice it in that way. So, in that context, I will end this Swamiji's speech, which I have dared to taken the courage to speak on. Although I don't have eligibility, I don't have the uh, mastery over the language. So, but still, I attempted. But anyway, I will end with a prayer with Swamiji. Uh, Namashri Yatirajaya Vivekanandaya Sure Satchit Sukha Swarupaye Swamine Tapaharini नमः श्रीयतिराजाय विवेकानन्दाय सूरये सच्चित्सुखस्वरूपाय स्वामिने तापहारिणे नमः श्रीयतिराजाय विवेकानन्दाय सूरये सच्चित्सुखस्वरूपाय स्वामिने तापहारिणे ओम शांति 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 लोका समस्ता सुखिनो भवन्तु लोका समस्ता सुखिनो भवन्तु लोका समस्ता सुखिनो भवन्तु ओम शांति शांति शांति